morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here with David, and we are talking all about intuition and receiving messages. And I know maybe if you've been listening to the series that we've been doing this month, you know that we've been talking about spiritual habits and practices. I'm not really sure. I imagine many of you are thinking, how is intuition a spiritual habit or practice? And that, my friends, is the punchline, actually. The Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual energy forecast where we and our guests provide the most powerful and practical wisdom and tools to help you navigate not only this coming week, but all kinds of situations that you may encounter throughout your lives. And we use the wisdom of Kabbalah as our compass to guide us on what to talk about. So many times we hear from our listeners, wow, that was so perfect. Couldn't have been better timing. How did you know? And the truth is, it's not David and I sitting here intuiting what to talk about. It really is a system, a Swiss clock of understanding what's coming at us. And this week, not only this week, but this month, with the idea of committing to habits and practices, the first thing we need to talk about when it comes to developing intuition is that it is a habit and a practice. It cannot be something that you call upon only when you're in desperate situations and you need guidance and you need support, or you have to make a decision and, please God, tell me what to do, give me a sign. That's not usually going to result in any kind of clarity or the success rate, let's say, of asking only when you're desperate for a message or a sign is not going to result usually in the best case scenario. Whereas that constant dialogue, and I know David has a lot to say about this, the constant conversation, creating a pathway and a channel, and we'll talk about how to do that. But really, it's almost like the universe needs us to set up a phone system, a communication line between ourselves. It's really our lower selves and our higher selves, but some people like to think about it as receiving messages from source, from the universe, from the creator. We have all those messages within us. We have that homing device within. We have different barriers and blockages. Almost every episode of the Weekly Energy Boost talks about how to remove some of those barriers and blockages. But this week, we're going to talk specifically about what prevents us from receiving those messages more consistently and how to create that communication system. I think that the number one thing, or the most important element of that system, is that you use it constantly. Like a muscle, any muscle that isn't used regularly is going to atrophy. We all have that ability to communicate. When we were kids, we received messages constantly. We saw signs constantly. And over time, or maybe it's from our environment, we were told to ignore that that's not real, that that's not true. And eventually we shut down that muscle. Now we're talking this week about how to awaken it, strengthen it, and use it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little bit yesterday, and we don't sit here with like long pages of notes and outlines for our podcasts. So this is more of a conversation. And if a person had to ask me what's the best way to put yourself in a position to get a message, I loved what Michael Berg shared on Saturday. He shared some wisdom with us, and one way that we can ensure that we're tapped into the frequency of what we call the light of the creator, because there's many pathways and many pipes of messages that come down. And one of the most popular questions that people ask in Kabbalah 1 is, how do I know if it's my soul, the light of the creator, talking to me, or it's my opponent talking to me? How do I know, right? How do I know that this advice or this, what we call intuition, or this feeling is coming from the dark side or the positive side? And I think it's less about knowing where it's coming from rather than how you can bulletproof yourself. And when internally, this is kind of what Michael spoke about on Saturday, when internally you don't feel like sucked in to the situation and sucked into the illusion and out of control, and you feel that you're kind of outside of the illusion. Remember,
well, that's the whole thing about being desperate. When we're desperate for something, when we're reacting.
That's how you know you're in it.
Right.
That's how you know you're in it. And this is why Kabbalah 1 is so profound, because the only free will we have is restriction. And restriction, which is that pause button, basically you're pausing, you're not suppressing, you're pausing your need to get into it and get lost into the situation, whether that's for the good or for the bad. Right? Sometimes we get overly excited about stuff, which means we're getting sucked in, or sometimes we get sad about stuff, which means we get sucked in. And we talked about how the opponent often works. One of the ways he does a 1-2 punch, and it says that the opponent has a male and a female side to it, and the male gets you excited, and then the female gets you depressed. That's kind of the positive and negative side of how the opponent, that negative energy we call the Satan, works. Is oftentimes we do something that we're excited about, we're passionate about. It can be some kind of an addiction, something that brings us instant gratification. That's the male aspect of the negative side that tempts us and blinds us into taking that momentary pleasure. That's an example of being lost into the thick of it. And then oftentimes when we make that mistake or we engage in that instant gratification, we feel bad about ourselves, we feel guilt, we feel some form of sadness, whether it's present, whether it's kind of very subdued or it's more external sadness. And then that's how the opponent gets us on the other end. So, and in both cases, we're not tapped in to the intuition that we're looking for, to the light of the Creator. So it's less about trying to analyze what's this message, but it's more about where are you at personally in that moment. Do you feel whole, complete, outside of the illusion, or do you feel like you're sucked in and being torn and pulled from one side to the other? If you feel like you're being pulled, that's a sign that you're in the realm where the intuition can't get to you.
It's funny because someone is asking, what's the difference between intuition and intention? David actually touched on the answer there. I find that this is one of the things that prevents people also from fully receiving a clear and unbiased broadcast is intention. How many times has it happened to you where, let's say, you're looking for a car, or you're going to buy, a new appliance or something? You're researching something, and suddenly everyone has it. Everyone's driving a Toyota. Suddenly, it's a sign. Or I'm thinking about buying this watch, and I went to a store, and the salesperson was wearing the same watch I'm thinking about buying. Right. Kabbalah talks a lot about the power of intention. We've had episodes about it probably more than once a year. And the key is, do I want what I want, or do I want what's best for me? The Kabbalists teach over and over and over again in many different ways, shapes, and forms that if our desire for what's bad for us is wrong or isn't the best for us, we might actually get it because our desire is strong enough. But that doesn't mean that we're getting the best that we could, or what's ultimately going to bring us the most fulfillment. Many times we get what we want, or I should say, probably everybody who's listening right now can say, yes, I've gotten what I've wanted before, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or it wasn't as good as I assumed it was going to be, whether it's a relationship, a job, a car, a home, you name it. It could even be something as mundane as a toaster, right? You get the latest phone, and you wish it happened to me. My husband just reminded me when it was that we went from BlackBerry to Apple. It took me a long time to recover from that. I only wanted my BlackBerry back, right? So, everybody was hyping up the Apple. We gave in and we got it, and it took me a long time to get used to it. Now, it's a very mundane example, but the idea is that the intention is actually one of the most important ingredients to developing that intuition. Is why do you want it? Why do you want to intuit? Why do you want to get messages? Why do you want to know the answers or the right path to take? Is it because you want to have a fun party trick and impress people in social circles? Is it because you don't want to struggle with making your own decisions? I find a lot of people want answers because they don't want to own responsibility for making decisions in their life. They want it. Well, it was a sign, I had to follow it, rather than thinking and researching and being honest with themselves about where they're headed or where they're at. They'd rather get a sign, follow it, and say, well, what could I do? I got a sign. It was so, I couldn't ignore the message, right? How many times have you had people say, well, somebody channeled that this is my soulmate, so I had to marry them, and now where are they? Because they listened to someone else. So part of what we want to understand here and get clear with, as with any week of the year really, is why do I want it? What am I going to do with it? What purpose does it serve? And if it's not for the sake of getting close to the Creator, I don't know if I shared this before, but I was in a class a few weeks ago and someone shared something so profound. I might have shared it here. I apologize if it's redundant for anybody, but he said, once you realize that everything in your life is set up to get you closer to the Creator, you start enjoying life a lot more. Unfortunately, we think it's about having more money, having more respect or success, or having life be peaceful or calm or not being bothered. The opposite, that if everything, those might be the benefits, that maybe we'll have more peace of mind, we'll have more happiness, we'll have more joy and love and prosperity, but it's for the sake of, those are the side effects. The goal is to get us closer, have more affinity, have us be the co-creators of our reality. Then you start enjoying what's going on a little bit more because you realize that's what it's for. So really the purpose of being able to channel messages, receive, what's interesting to me also is that the word in Hebrew for intuition, it's actually two words, it's Ruach Kodesh, which means divine inspiration, or actually if you go to the basic translation, it's Holy Spirit, which I know for a lot of people means something else. Holy Spirit, being able to draw a Holy Spirit onto ourselves really is all about what's your intention. And if your intention isn't pure, you're going to get some messages that are not from the light, as David was talking about before.
I love this question because the question you asked, which is why do you want it? Because one of the questions I have here in the chat is, what do you do? Here's for example, and we can all relate to this in some way. What do you do if you're feeling left out by your friends? How do you not let negativity suck you in? So I want everybody to kind of just take that for a moment. Being left out, whether it's by your friends, by society, by any moment where you feel rejection, how do you not let the negativity in? Because at that moment that you feel rejected, you're now in the illusion, right? You just got sucked in. And when you're in the illusion, we just learned you can't get intuition, you can't get messages, you can't get guidance. So your first step needs to be not how to fight the illusion, but how to step out of the illusion, okay? And one of the exercises that I do, I'm trying to pull up, I've had this conversation dozens, hundreds of times probably with people. I'm trying to pull one up, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of it here because there's a lot going on in between. But basically, there was a student that I had a while back who was always working very hard. And something didn't feel right about the amount of hard work. We promote hard work, obviously. But there was so much work. And the way that this person was working felt like it came from a lot of fear. So if you all can relate when you do something to an extreme because of a fear. Now, whether you're aware of that fear or not a lot of people are aware that there's some kind of fear. So I said, I want you to, this isn't the text, I want you to get to a place where you realize what is the fear that's driving you, because I don't feel like you're working all altruistically here or for the right reasons. I feel like you're running away from something. So the person wrote back eventually, I feel I'm working because I have to, I feel the pressure to make it and have something to show for myself. All right. So sometimes we have that feeling, whether it's because we want to show our parents something, we have to show society some kind of pain or lack we feel inside of ourselves, and we feel we have to show something that we're worth it, that we're valuable, that we did something. All right, that's a good answer. And so I said, okay, well, what will happen if you don't, if you have nothing to show for yourself? And then the person writes, well, if I don't have money or success, then no one will respect me. I probably won't find a good soulmate. The relationship, I'll probably find a subpar relationship, because, right, so now we're going down. I want you guys to follow this because it gets better. I have nothing to show for myself. I won't have money or success or status. As a result, I will have, no one will respect me. People won't want to spend time with me. I will attract a subpar relationship. Okay. And I said, so what's wrong with that? What's wrong? What's so bad about having a subpar relationship? And what's so bad about nobody respecting you? And then the answer was, then life sucks. I'm unhappy and I feel empty inside. And then I wrote, so what? What's wrong with being empty and life sucking? Right? Who said that life sucking is a bad thing? Right? And the person's like, I don't have an answer yet. And then a little later they wrote, you say what's wrong with being empty and life sucking. If those things are happening, then I'm miserable, right? Okay. So if life sucks and I'm empty, therefore I'm miserable. And I want life to be amazing. And I want to be happy and fulfilled. That's why I'm worried. So then I wrote, you believe, and I hope everyone's following here and relating it to their own life. You believe if life sucks, that equals misery. And I said, who programmed you to believe that? Who programmed you to believe that if nobody respects you, therefore you are miserable? Why can't you believe that if nobody respects you, that equals joy? Why do you feel that if nobody respects you, that equals misery? And we're getting to a place here, which is the secret of answering Jenna's question on my chat, but also the secret of any type of pain or lack. I always go back to the elite training of our servicemen, apropos to Memorial Day here. The elite of the elite, what they're trained to do is to face every dark situation, to get to a point where they're no longer scared of it, they're no longer worried about it. They even simulate torture, right? For the very elite infantry or the Navy SEALs, they actually go through a simulation of torture. So depriving you of sleep, putting you in a dark place, in a small place, who knows with the extreme tactics they go through. Now, why do they go through that simulation? To get comfortable with it to some extent. You go through all these painful, miserable, life-sucking scenarios so that you get trained to be comfortable with it. The highest level is if you can even have joy in it, if you can train yourself, and we know we can train ourselves to do anything. So what happens if now you've trained yourself to have joy when life sucks and nobody likes you and you're getting rejected, and you have joy when things are good? Now you're invincible. Now you're never getting sucked into the illusion. That's how powerful. And then you're constantly receiving messages and intuition. So I'm going to stop right there. And that was kind of the exercise that I go through for myself when I feel afraid, and the exercise I take people through, because we are built to believe that if life sucks, that equals misery, and that's not accurate.
It's interesting because there's even a checklist of different things to make sure that we have in our inventory so that we can receive messages, and one of them is to make sure that we don't fall into sadness and anger, which David was just explaining. Is we can train ourselves. Yes, we may feel it, right? You have to feel it in order to overcome it, but to be able to resist the dwelling in it, to resist the rolling around in the self-pity or the rehashing of the past and regurgitating the anger that you may have felt that anger for 30 seconds. But our tendency as human beings is to rehash, regurgitate, relive those moments. And that clogs up the channels of communication. So we need to also be aware of that. The funny thing is, I don't know if it's funny, but one of the other things that the Kabbalists teach is that, as I mentioned in the first couple minutes of the episode, we can't be reactive about intuition. The ability, when you see people who just, I know that I have people in my life that I look to for messages as well, for reflecting messages, for guidance. And one thing I am very clear about it, one of the reasons that they are my go-tos is because they have this calm, cool, collected demeanor that is contagious. I want that same kind of calm, cool, collected demeanor.
And it's real. It's authentic. It's not
right.
just like, pretending to be.
They're not swallowing their ire as I approach them. They are genuinely peaceful beings, and that's the conductor for those messages. And I don't know about you, David, I have a whole list of different things that can help us tap into being more, receiving more messages, feeling
Please.
more. But the fundamental, the foundation, square one, is why do you want it?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that that desire is not selfish, reactive, for the sake of placating a lack, to use David's lack reference. If it's ever for fulfilling a lack, it will always be a convoluted message. Even if you get a little bit of clarity, it will always be, what's the word? Like a secondhand message instead of a pure channeling. And the third thing is that if you really want to develop the ability to receive messages, it has to be a habit. It has to be a daily practice. And one of the things I love, and obviously it was intentional as well, to bring this as the last in the series of spiritual habits and practices, is because meditation and prayer are elemental. Sharing and giving are elemental. The Kabbalists teach that if a selfish person will not be able to receive messages, point blank, no, period. There's no, the paragraph ends there. Because if it's all about us and how much we can get and how much we need and how much we're reactive, there will always be a convoluted message received. So get into, I guess maybe that's the starting point. First of all, do it daily. Don't, and what I learned this actually from one of our guests, it's not about having a question. It's more of asking things like light, fill in the blank, creator, universe, spirit, God, whatever resonates with you. What do I need to know today? What do I need to focus on today? Our Ali, who was on a couple of weeks ago talking to us about meditation, she shared that she opens up, she has a deck of cards, 72 names of God cards, and she starts off the day asking, what kind of support am I going to need? And she randomly picks a card, and inevitably the day really does require that energy, that focus, and that meditation. That's a perfect example of a lighthearted practice to get you in the mode of receiving messages. But starting out the day asking, we talked last week, help bring me opportunities to share, right? Help me be a being of sharing. When you ask those questions, some people say, I don't know how to talk to the light. I don't know how to talk to the creator. I just gave you 5 different sentences to use to start that conversation. It's not text message where you're going to see the bubbles, are they answering me or not? It's really opening myself up every morning. I would recommend doing it every morning to be guided. And David, do you want to say anything about that?
I mean, I have stuff here based on what people are writing, based on what you're saying, but keep going.
Well, no. So what I wanted to say also is that when it comes to receiving messages, don't expect it to come in a text or an email or, a bumper sticker on a car in front of you. One of the things that the Kabbalists teach about receiving, being intuitive, is that not everybody's intuition is in the same language. Now, I don't even mean Spanish, English, French. I mean, maybe it's a sensation you have in your body that's telling you to pay attention to something. Maybe it's a something that you see or a smell you smell, right? The universe communicates to us in so many different ways and shapes. There's even a whole discussion that the Kabbalists have about receiving messages from animals, from inanimate objects. And you say, well, how can I receive a message from an inanimate object? Have you ever stubbed your toe before?
Are you asking?
I'm saying everyone has stubbed their toe before. I once broke my toe walking into my bed. Oh. It was a message. But as examples like that, right? Knowing that if there is a glass that falls off the shelf and hits me on the head, there's a message there for me. What's the message? And oftentimes students come to me and will say, such and such happened. What does that mean? I'm sure it happens to you all the time. This and this and this happened. What does that mean? My favorite question to ask is, you tell me, right. What does it mean? Because I'm not sitting here with a book, like a Harry Potter style book of incantations and recipes for magic that says, well, if a blue coffee cup breaks at 7 a.m. in your kitchen, what does it mean?
Well, when people go to Mordechai, your husband, for dream interpretation, he doesn't throw it back at them. He sits there and dissects the symbols and the messaging and whatnot, right?
Well, I shouldn't say that. There are some black and white. We spoke about this when he was here talking about dream interpretation. There are some, if this happens, it means this. Yeah. But there's so few that chances are what you're experiencing isn't in that book.
Right.
They're very classic textbook. If this kind of bird drops dead at your feet, right, it means this.
If this, then that.
Right. Very few of those if this, then that. Most of it is really the universe trying to get us to wake up, I would say, to that low-hanging fruit. As David always says, there is something that we can be doing, we know we should be doing. It's even probably on a to-do list that we keep on rolling over to the next day's to-do list. Quite often the universe throws, I'm using that in quotes, but it's really true, right? Very often the universe throws things at us to get our attention because we're ignoring the ridiculously obvious.
Well, what about this? What about the fact, this is kind of going to twist your brain a little bit. What about the fact that sometimes you'll get a message to do something, and that thing is actually a mistake that the universe, the creator, is forcing you to do in order to embark on a certain journey. So, for example, let's say, gosh, so many different examples here, but let's say you make a mistake, but you had the best intention, and then the mistake was still made. So on one hand, you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That voice came from the opponent. But in reality, that voice came from the creator. The creator wanted you to make a mistake in order to create this chaotic situation, because you were meant to experience this chaos, and that's your real test. So your real test wasn't hear the voice, don't hear the voice, react to the voice, don't react to the voice. The creator made it even feel like this is from the creator. And you did it, but it ended up backfiring in a big way. And then you have this mess. You have to clean up this chaos, and people are hurt, and money is lost. And, you think, you start beating yourself up. But in reality, you were tapped in. You did receive the right message. And you were actually meant to go through that 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year painful scenario. And the reason why this is important is because we all, every time we have pain, we just kind of go back to the last 24 hours, what did I do? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? And this self-flagellation, what's the right word?
Yeah.
Is that right? Self-flagellation? Is that word? Mm-hmm. Okay. That we're all so accustomed to doing it. And Kabbalah partly is to blame for that sometimes, because we're so acutely trying to change. We're always analyzing ourselves and auditing ourselves, but it can backfire the other way, which is you start to constantly berate yourself. But sometimes, here's the rule. The rule is, after you've made a mistake, you need to know you were meant to make it. So it's not about beating yourself up that you made it. The message was from the creator. It was the right thing. You shouldn't think that way before you make a mistake. Before you make a mistake, you should learn from past lessons and try to optimize the way you approach it. But after something happens, you have to accept that that was a message that the creator gave you, that the creator wanted you to do, and now it's okay. And the current situation in front of you is all part of your destiny. You were meant to go through it no matter what. So I think intuition, people always think, is this voice that immediately brings something positive and good. But sometimes the voice comes and wants to help you embark on a journey that is painful in the beginning, and the fruit is, and the pleasurable fruit is at the end.
It's important. What David said is not only important when you look back on something, but also when you prepare or plan for something in the future. So the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of the decisions that we make that are limited for ourselves are based on past mistakes. I had a bad experience, therefore next time I'm not going to. A lot of people resist getting into new relationships because they are uber aware of the mistakes they made in the previous one, which sort of neutralizes them from being able to move forward. what David is sharing is an overarching sentiment I think we can use in every area of our life, knowing that what's behind us was perfect. It was exactly the way that it needed to be. And that doesn't mean that what I'm walking into next is going to be a instant replay of what happened. And meditation is one of those practices we brought up a couple weeks ago that can help with refocusing our perspective on things. And I'm bringing it up again because especially when we have situations from the past, like David was mentioning, where we have every reason to say we acted out of limitation, or we acted out of fear, we were responding to scars from previous relationships, and therefore we shut down or we closed ourselves off, whatever the case is. Instead, being able to go down inside. Often I ask my students, and I'm full disclosure, I copy pasted this from Michael Berg as well. If I could see through the eyes of the Creator, why would I have given me this situation?
Right.
Why would I have, if I were the Creator, I usually say it like that. If I were the Creator, or I talk to a student and I say, if you were the Creator, why would you have given yourself this situation? And inevitably, it allows us to rise above and zoom out, kind of imagining you're looking at it from an airplane, right? You can see the structure of the highway or the road that you're on a lot better when you're not sitting in the car. So when you're able to zoom out and see that, you're also able to receive greater perspective. And I include that in the category of intuition, right? Intuition is not only what should I do, it's what was the gift given to me? If I can intuit, if I can channel the deeper meaning of why that relationship failed, or I don't know, I find myself coaching a lot of people around being able to do better next time, right? What can I learn from the past and how can I do better next time? There is always I don't want to be too cliche. It's not that there's a silver lining. It's that every gift from the universe comes in a prickly package. And unfortunately, we focus more on the packaging than we do on the gift inside. Now, imagine if we did that in real life, right? Somebody gives you a gift, and all you can think about is how poorly wrapped it was, or how the wrapping paper was repurposed, right? It was previously used wrapping paper. I don't know what. Instead, look for the inner, intrinsic gift or value that's inside of that experience. And sometimes it will come from out of the blue. I don't know if I've shared this on the show before, but I'll give you an example. I was doing a workshop with a group of my students, and one of my students was very stuck on the answer for her. It was an ego workshop, and she was trying to get to the root. Why was this her root ego? How does it show up for her? And it was completely in her blind spot. So I suggested some meditations for her, obviously using the Zohar and different Kabbalistic tools. She was doing it every day for a few weeks. And she got nothing. And then she called me. She left me a voicemail message. I remember it so clearly. Six weeks after, she said, Elisheva, it hit me like a brick. In the middle of the night, I simply sat up in bed and I understood where it comes from. And so I'm sharing that it is a possibility that you will intuit things like a brick falling on your head. But the reason I'm sharing that example is because it was from the past. It was not what should I do. It was not what's the next best choice. What's the next move I need to make. It was I'm looking for clarity and understanding about an existing situation or even a past situation in my life. I can receive that message. And even if you can't receive that message, this is maybe a more important message from the story, is you get to decide what it means to you. When something in the past has happened and you regret it or you wish you had known better, you can actually say, you know what? The 20-year-old me didn't know any better. And I did the best that I could with the information that I had. And therefore, it was a blessing. And I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow for it. So there's no mistakes. There's no accidents. Riding on the coattails of David's point from a few minutes ago, there are no mistakes. There are no accidents when you're looking through the rearview mirror. Knowing that not only whatever you called it before, you can change how you call it now, is also really being a channel. I don't think it's different than receiving a message out of the blue in the middle of the night. If you have something in your past that you have labeled bad, dark, stupid, mistake, change the message and you will change what's happening for you right now.
I have a question here. I'm doing Kabbalah 2, and I'm focusing on, they wrote medication, but I think they meant meditation. Focusing on meditation. And we don't teach medication in Kabbalah 2. I think that's Kabbalah 3.
No, that's pharmacy 2.
Yeah.
Medication.
That's really the more elevated classes we don't teach the public. And learning how to talk and connect to feel closer to the Creator. How can I keep moving forward when someone else close to me is reactive most of the time? So this is a big one because we get this a lot, and I want the audience to see if they can relate. You're trying to be spiritual. You're trying to even meditate or connect or do something, but there's a reactive environment around you that is subduing that and not and impeding your ability to grow and to elevate. And I will, do another Michael Berg, hack, life hack that I think about this all the time. And one of the things that he shared many years ago, he said that sometimes he tries to pray and meditate. If he's in a room with people making a lot of noise, one of the tricks that he uses is to realize. He said two things. He said, one, imagine that you just came out of prison and you were invited to come do this like meditation, with these people. And you felt like, wow, what a privilege that they invited you to come do this meditation with them. And they start making noise. Like, it wouldn't bother you because you don't feel any entitlement to your meditation. You're a guest, you're invited, it's such a privilege, it's an amazing thing. So it doesn't bother you. And this is a trick because everything that bothers us stems from entitlement. We believe we deserve. So if we want to change our consciousness in the moment, just realize that you're an invited guest. But what's even more powerful is when it happens to me in any situation, the noise around you and the negative energy around you is actually the stepping stone that your prayers and meditation need to elevate. So, for example, imagine everyone's talking around you and you're trying to meditate and it's a struggle. Actually, whatever meditation you're able to do is the noise is the springboard to take it to the higher levels. So had the noise not even been there, your prayers and your meditation would be stuck. Now, you may feel better, but feeling is no indication of success in prayer and meditation. So in fact, the more difficult it is around you to make the connection, the higher your prayers elevate. Now, that doesn't mean you should look for a noisy atmosphere to go meditate. That's not what we're saying. We're saying when the noise comes to you, that's the Creator's way of saying, well, let me elevate this further, even though you think it's not working at all. But we are still advised to find quiet space that we can focus. But, sure enough, every time I'm doing something barges in to the path. And whether that's a kid, a phone call, another responsibility, that is elevating it. So when your kid barges in and wants to talk to you while you're meditating, the kid's really saying, I want to elevate your prayers higher.
I'm only laughing because I can completely relate, and also want to put in, I think that people who are listening are like, okay, well, David, all the prayers and meditations to get those messages. If you're just starting out on a practice, and hopefully these last few episodes have inspired you to commit to a daily practice, not only of meditation and prayer, but also generosity, sharing, visualizations, affirmations. If you haven't listened to all the episodes from this month, please go back and do that. The real key to beginning that intuitive connection with the Creator, with your soul essentially, is asking open-ended questions. That's something that I think is hard for us because usually when we have questions, we're asking either or. On the Bachelor, they only have so many options. On I don't know, in lots of areas of life, we think that we have limited options when the truth is there are unlimited options. And so the best way to get into that practice is asking open questions. That's why I said before, send me a message, give me opportunities to share. What do I need to focus on today? What is the most important, right? And don't, even in your meditation, and I do guided meditations with people all the time, even if you don't hear the answer while your eyes are closed and you're peaceful and quiet, that doesn't mean that the answer isn't coming toward you. When you engage in a practice like this, and so we're suggesting in not so many words, that you have that daily practice where you sit hopefully quietly, peacefully, and have that moment of connection. Understand that that meditation and that prayer is paving a pathway so that you have more openness and receptivity during the day to receive messages. So again, it might not come in a spoken word that you hear. It might come in an image, in a color, in a smell, but that you keep asking the questions. Like David said, not feeling it while you're praying or meditating is no indication of failure. It's no indication of an inadequate prayer or meditation. One of the things that Ali Katz shared a few weeks ago is there is no such thing as a bad meditation, right?
Oh, the Ali show was great.
There's no such thing as a bad shower. There's no such thing as a bad meditation. The point is that you do it regularly. So creating that, right? Isn't that a great metaphor? Sometimes you have long, nice showers, and sometimes you have just a quick shower.
Imagine that people who take really long showers, but then they don't shower for a week. It's a problem.
I don't want to imagine that, but thank you. Ignore what David just said. Go back to your Zen moment, imagining yourself in a moment of Zen, and you're asking for messages. By the way, something we didn't talk about and we're running out of time is anyone and anything can be a messenger. I think we write off people who are quote unquote negative or not spiritual as being unable to conduct a message for us. Anyone can be a message and anything can be a message. It's really up to us. I don't want to say we're the problem, but we're the variable. How do we interpret the message is really the question. So in opening ourselves up to receive more messages, let's also try and be mindful about the messages that we're blocking, right? You may have somebody who is broadcasting loud and clear in your life. And even though what they say, I'll give an example. Maybe someone's accusing you of something, right? It's actually a very funny thing that happens a lot with kids, right? He stole my blank. Now, the challenge with that is that we all shop at the same store. So you may be wearing the exact same sweatshirt that, I bought for my kid, and my kid is saying, but Mom, he stole my sweatshirt, and really the sweatshirt is in his closet hanging, right? So you may have somebody that's saying, you stole my sweatshirt, you stole my sweatshirt, you stole my sweatshirt. And you know that you bought the sweatshirt and there's no basis for the accusation. But there is a message there. If it's repeated over and over and over and over again, maybe I stole credit for something that I didn't create. Maybe I stole energy that wasn't intended for me. My point is that in the process of being as self-reflective as Kabbalah asks us to be, right? David said you can't be too much into it because then you're going to end up beating yourself up constantly. But to be able to ask the question, okay, I know I didn't steal the sweatshirt, but what's the message for me here? What am I taking that's not mine? Or maybe I stole someone else's sweatshirt and I should go look at my closet to make sure everything there is actually mine. Or maybe it's underwear for all I know. But you understand what I'm saying? It's really be that openness. What we're asking when we want to receive a message is really that we'll be open because the broadcast is constant and we are the ones wearing the earplugs or the blinders or, blocking people from being conductors of those messages.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You want to wrap it up?
I guess I can wrap it up. So that concludes.
I want to know. And I'm just throwing it out there, but what? Are people? What's the temperature out there on having live classes again in person? What do you feel? I mean, I don't know how people feel if they want to. I'm curious. I haven't even asked the question yet.
Our listeners, I've actually been asking my students about it. Our listeners are from all over the world, so some places it's not an option. We happen to be. David and I live in Los Angeles, so it's opening up pretty rapidly right now. But there's a lot of places that it's not even an option. But for the most part, I've been hearing two very opposite answers.
Really?
People are super excited, and people really love the fact that they can get everything while sitting on their couch, and they have no intention of
Interesting.
being bothered to put on clothing anymore.
I mean, truthfully, we could have live classes in LA, but people can still live stream as well. We've never done that in the past.
Well, I can tell you from someone who has done it in the past. Why are we discussing this on the air? I'm not sure. But I think it diminishes.
It's our largest audience. I'm curious what they think.
It's very hard to speak to the crowd behind the camera and the crowd in front of you at the same time.
Got it.
So I can tell you from experience, for what it's worth, it does a disservice to the people who are behind the screens to have people in the room, unless you're only talking to the camera and the people in the room are there like a studio audience.
I got it.
Right? That's how television is for the behind the camera,
Right.
but there often is a studio audience just for you to get the energy.
That's right.
So, on that note, if you didn't get to listen to the previous 3 episodes, I highly recommend that you go back and listen. Next month, I wish I could remember I might have it written down here. My laptop passed out a few minutes ago. Tune in next week to find out what we're going to be talking about. I want to encourage everyone to follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. We are going to be migrating soon from David's Facebook page to...
We are?
We are.
Oh, no.
We're going to migrate to our own Facebook page. So get onto Facebook, get onto Instagram, and follow us. It's Weekly Energy Boost on both platforms. I want to thank everybody who's been rating, reviewing, helping to get us out there. Keep sharing, engaging in the conversation. I can't even tell you how much of my week I spend talking to people on the different platforms who have connected with us for the first time and are so grateful to their friends who sent it to them. So keep doing that. What else?
That's it.
That's it. Really excited to start on a new series next week. That's it. Love you guys. Have a fabulous week. And we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.